heel elevated goblet squat. Now, for the actual elevation, whatever you select, what you want to keep in mind and be sure of is one, that it's not going to slide out from underneath you, so it's a firm and safe surface for you to step on top of. And two, you want to make sure that there's a decent amount of thickness. So here, I've got about maybe 3 or 4 centimeters, and I'm going to be placing that under my heels, and that's going to make a difference. You can go higher than that, and that's absolutely fine. It will make the movement a little bit harder because it will give you access to more range of motion, but that's a good thing. The harder you work, the more range of motion, the more stimulation the muscle gets. So here I'm using 2.5 kilo plates, which is by far the most common tool used. Again, you can use a thicker one. You can use even a dumbbell in some scenarios, assuming it's not going to roll out underneath you. You can use one of those thick bumper plates. That's fine, so long as it's not going to slide out from underneath you. So setting up, placing the elevation, heel elevation, in the same position your feet would be in when setting up for a squat. So for me, that's just outside of hip width. Grabbing your weight, here I'm using a dumbbell. You can use a kettlebell, you can use a weight plate, whatever you want, as long as the weight is challenging. I'm going to place literally just my heel on top of the elevation. I don't want my entire foot on the elevation, literally just sort of the back end of my heel on top of the elevation. Holding the weight out in front, in your squat stance, looking straight ahead, conscious of your posture, and going all the way down as deep as you can, coming up. All the way down as deep as you can, and then coming up. Pretty straightforward. Some things to keep in mind is you want to think about pushing through your midfoot. That may not make sense for some of you because your midfoot isn't actually in contact with the ground, but the idea of it will help ensure that you stay over your center of mass. It's essentially achieving balance between placing pressure on your heel and your toe to work right in the center and apply pressure through your midfoot. Again, with the heel elevation, you only just want the back end of your heel on the elevation. And aside from that, everything else is pretty straightforward. Focus on full range of motion, going all the way up, all the way down. Controlling your knees. We don't want them moving too far in or out of alignment with our toes. For example, a small degree of change is okay, but if it was more excessive than that, where your foot is literally peeling off the ground in either way, and that's not safe. Control your knees, keep your feet planted. Other than that, movement's pretty straightforward. And don't be afraid to experiment with higher elevations and lower elevations, depending on what your preference is.